Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Rotus, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Have to, of course, start off. Happy birthday to Prince Nduka Ogbabina. I was also at his residence. Fantastic implications. And it helped me to ease my depression from Djokovic getting spanked by Carlos Alcaraz yesterday. So happy birthday to the Duke. Let's go to China. Dr. Abati actually previewed this on Friday. The plenum, the third plenum that is actually beginning today, Monday through Thursday. There are a number of economic issues. We all know them. The property market, the deflationary environment, the need for stimulus in China. We'll hear some decisions. Those decisions have actually been compounded by China's GDP growth. Quickly, let's jump to the numbers. Coming in for the second quarter of this year, 4.7%. The forecast was 5.1. First quarter GDP was 5.3. So China's economy has slowed from the first quarter to the second. Industrial output also came under expectations, so did retail sales. Let's quickly jump to Europe. The EU Commission on Friday released a press release saying that X, formerly known as Twitter, has violated its Digital Services Act. The Digital Services Act is for online practitioners in terms of transparency, giving data to researchers, and also keeping up with human rights. Quickly looking at a tweet from Margaret Vestager, who of course runs the EU Commission, says, in our view, X doesn't comply with the DSA in key transparency areas. It misleads users, fails to provide adequate and repository, and blocks access to data for researchers. First time we're issuing a preliminary findings. Now, here is a tweet, very important here. The EU Commission leader for the online marketplace, Thierry Breton. Read this carefully because I'm going to tie this to what happened with to Donald Trump over the weekend. He said back in the day, the blue check used to mean trustworthy sources of information. Now with X, our preliminary view is that they deceive users, they infringe on the elements of the DSA. X has now the right of defense, but if our view is confirmed, we're going to impose fines and require significant changes. Elon Musk tweeted and said, I will see you in court. Now, this is an illustration of what we're talking about. There's a tweet from Shayan Sardarizadeh, who is with BBC Verify. He essentially highlighted some major accounts on X that pointed to the wrong shooter that attacked, almost killed President Trump over the weekend. This gentleman you're seeing is an Italian journalist over in Rome. He has nothing to do with the shooting, but prominent right-wing accounts that Elon Musk has replied and amplified on the platform were pointing to this guy. He says he's going to bring legal action against those accounts. He woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning with people saying that he was the one that attempted to kill President Trump. Let's go to Nigeria quickly. As has already been mentioned, the Dangote Refinery hosting a tour over the weekend, a lot being discussed. One of the things that came up was that the NNPCL's shares, the equity in the Dangote Refinery has, fallen from 20% to 7.2%, although maybe it never even got to 20%. Here is a quote from Aliko Dangote himself, chair CEO of the Dangote Group. Says the agreement was actually 20%, which we had with NNPCL, and they did not pay the balance of the money up till last year, and then we gave them another extension up to June 2024, and they said they would remain where they already paid, which is 7.2%. Here's what the NNPCL said through its chief corporate communications, Olufemi Soneye. NNPC Limited periodically assesses its investment portfolio to ensure alignment with the company's strategic goals. The decision to cap its equity participation at the paid-up sum was made and communicated to Dangote Refinery several months ago. That is pretty interesting, because when you marry that with what Mele Kyari was saying about the strategic, taking a strategic position in Dangote Refinery, its potential for growth, surprising that they've decided to cap that at 7.2%. Agriculture, will round off with that. The government's plans to remove import duties on particular staple commodities in order to try and bring down prices over the next 150 days is getting some pushback. Of course, Akiume Additional, as you know, the position he served in the Jonathan government in terms of agriculture, now the president of the AFDB. Here's what he said. Nigeria's recently announced policy to open its borders for massive food imports just to tackle short-term food prices is depressing. Second quote from Akiume Additional, Nigeria cannot rely on the importation of food to stabilize prices. Nigeria should produce more food to stabilize food prices while creating jobs and reduce foreign exchange spending, which will further help stabilize the naira. Finally, the Raphael Hunsa, who is the chairman of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, the Lagos chapter, he also weighing in. The import duties exception the government has granted for rice imports will greatly affect local rice production. He then says, second quote, this will license and give opportunities to businessmen to import their rice free of charge. This development is not encouraging to local rice farmers at all. It is not beneficial to us. It means the government is encouraging more rice imports at the detriment of our local rice. I mean, look, the government has to do something in the short term. I think what the chairman of the Lagos chapter and Akiume Additional are talking about, these are more long-term things. And let's look at all the things that we are tempted to do to try and boost rice. Rufai talks about the rice thing all the time. So, something has to be done in the short term. That's our update for today.
I mean, and I get the analogy about short term, but why did we wait to be able to put in this short-term mess now? Because this was the same government that kept on denying that we had no problem with food, until a couple of months ago when they saw the issue was high. What about those interventions that the CBN used to put? Because then they used to blame Emefiele.
Well, Rufai, to be fair, just quickly, President Tinubu did announce that food emergency, state of emergency of food in July of last year.
So what did he do about it? Rotus, it's not about announcement. When you announce something, it becomes audio. It's audio announcement you announce. It's not when they announce that over 100,000 hectares will be cultivated. What did he do? He did nothing. He did nothing. In fact, what he did was, all those interventions the CBN used to do under Emefiele, he scaled them back. Maybe they called Emefiele the liar then. They called him the traitor. They called him all sorts of names. But these were the same people that they said, oh, he didn't use any money for intervention. But the same fertilizer, the remaining fertilizer, is not what they shared from Emefiele's time recently. So it is the government falling back. And go and read Akiume Additional's piece. It was very instructive. This was the same Nigeria that had a lot of paddy, that was achieving some level of self-sufficiency in paddy. But today we are talking about importing because we have not done what we ought to do. And that's just it. And concerning the Dangote Refinery, please, you can also see the flip-flop of NNPC. This was the NNPC that was bragging that we've acquired about 20%, which he thought, oh, okay, investing in that will also show up the potential. Today, they can't even give Dangote Refinery crude. Dangote keeps complaining because they can't even, the section 109 of the PIA that talks about, direct obligation of crude, they can't even give him. That's why he's going to buy from foreign parties. And you want him to be able to moderate price for you. So you can see in these two instances where the government keeps failing. The same NNPC asked them, as at December, they said their own refinery in Port Harcourt was mechanically completed. Where is the crude from their Port Harcourt refinery? Nowhere to be found. They collected over $2 billion for that thing.
Good point.
All right. Well, going back to the story around agriculture,
can you imagine?
I'm with you on this, Rotus, in terms of the fact that whilst what Mr. Akiume Additional has said is absolutely spot on, the truth is that we have a crisis on our hands. So it's one thing to, in terms of policies, textbook, but it's another thing to face the reality and the fact that people just want to eat. And also, in line with what the president of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, it's quite sad, in terms of the fact that we have to be in this position where we will have to compromise the agricultural policy in Nigeria and an opportunity to really support agriculturalists in Nigeria by importing or taking away duties on importation. But I hope that this is a short-term measure alone, but that side by side, as we're taking away import duties on food, we're also looking at ways to deal with insecurity, which is a big factor when it comes to farmers going back to their farms, and of course other challenges in that area. They've talked about fertilizers going to state governors, and we need to actually ask the state governors to account for the interventions that the federal government has done through the states, to see how much of that has been going to the farmers, how much support the farmers have received, so that whilst we are getting in the immediate cheaper food through lack of import duties on those imported foods, but we also have to ensure that we are also building a sustainable channel out of our hunger. So both spot on, but quite sad that we're in this situation.
Okay, I don't think anybody can argue with Akiume Additional on the subject of food imports. He's a subject area expert, has a PhD in agricultural economics, has been Minister of Agriculture, helped to prepare a blueprint for how to, deepen the agriculture sector. So, it's absolutely correct. But however, I cautioned the commentators yesterday that, look, what we are saying about this food plan, livestock transformation of the Tinubu administration, the Minister of Agriculture, Abubakar Kyari, made a point that, look, they are still working on the plan. And that within the next 2 weeks, they will come up with the details. And he made that very clear. I guess that's why Mr. Bayo Ononuga put down his own post. So there will be a plan that will be confronted with by the National Economic Council and the food system unit set up by President Tinubu. Now, when they come up with their plan, we will interrogate it further. For now, many of our comments may be premature, but additional, being a subject area expert, of course, knows what he's talking about, given his experience in that field. Secondly, you talked about China. The third plenum starts today, Monday to Thursday. The expectation is that they will be talking about the massive housing sector problem that China has. But they will be talking about manufacturing, alternative fiscal system, how to grow the economy. This morning, Monday, the National Bureau of Statistics of China released data showing that manufacturing has increased by 5.3%, but demand went down year on year by about 4.8%. The first quarter GDP report, which was 5.3, has gone down in the second quarter at the end of June. Now, the expectation, the major challenge, is how China will make sure that GDP growth crosses the 5% mark expectation in 2024. So that's what they are dealing with in China. Finally, I would have wanted to comment on Donald Trump, how the CEOs, Elon Musk, endorsed him. Google endorsed him. Microsoft CEO endorsed him. Elon Musk is even said to have contributed some money to a PAC that is pro-Trump. That's how the markets have reacted to the attempt on Donald Trump's life. And finally, the Ambani wedding in India. It shows that India is truly a big market. The global elite in business, all of them were there, from Zuckerberg to Bill Gates. Everybody trooped to India to go and enjoy jollof rice and pepper soup. But the high moment for me is that we had a Nigerian representing us very well there. And that was Rema, who made $3 million just for singing for a few minutes. Great moment for Rema, great moment for Nigeria from a business point of view. Thank you very much indeed.